Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. Chapter 8 The Death Day Party. October arrives, spreading a damp chill over the ground and into the castle. Madame Pomfrey, the matron, was kept busy by a sudden spat of cold among the staff and student. The pepper-up potion worked instantly, though it left the drinker smoking at the ears for several hours afterward. Ginny Weasley, who had been looking peaky, was bullied into taking some by Percy. The steam pouring from under her vivid hair from impression that her whole head was on fire. Raindrop was... Wait a minute. Ginny... Raindrop of the size of bullet thunder on the castle window for days on the end. The lake rose, the flower bed turned into a muddy stream, and Hagrid pumpkins swelled to the size of garden shed. Oliver Wood's atheism from regular training session, however, was not dampened, which is why Harry was to be found late one stormy Saturday afternoon, a few days before Halloween, returning to Gryffindor Tower, drenched to a skin and splattered with mud. Even aside from the rain and wind, it had been a happy practice session. Fred and George, who had been spying on the Slytherin team, had seen for themselves the speed of those Nimbus 2001. They reported that the Slytherin team were no more than the seventh greenish blur shooting through the air like jump jet. As Harry squealed along the deserted corridor, he came across somebody who looked as just precious as he was. Nearly headless Nick, the ghost of Gryffindor Tower, was staring morosely out of the window, muttering under his breath, "Don't fulfill the requirement. Half an inch if that." "Hello, Nick," said Harry. Hello," said nearly headless Nick, starting and looking around. He had a dashing plump hat on his curly hair, and a tunic with ruff, which concealed the fact that his neck was almost completely severed. He was pale as smoke, and Harry could see right through him to the dark sky and torrential rain outside. "You look troubled, young Porter," said Nick, feeling a transported letter as he spoke and tucking it inside his doublet. "So do you," said Harry. "Ah," nearly headless Nick waved an elegant in hand. "A matter of no importance. It's not the sort I really want to join. Thought I would apply, but apparently I don't fulfill requirements." In spite of an airy tone, there was a look of great bitterness on his face. But you would think, wouldn't you? He erupted suddenly, pulling the letter back on his pocket, that getting hit 45 times in the neck with a blunt axis would qualify you to join the Headless Hunt. "Oh, yes," said Harry, who was obviously supposed to agree. Nobody wished more than I do that it had all been quick and clean, and my head had come off properly. It would have saved me a great deal of pain and ridicule. However, nearly headless Nick shook his letter open and read fiercely. "We can only accept huntsmen whose head have parted company with their bodies. You'll appreciate that it will be impossible otherwise for the member to participate in hunt activity such as horseback, head juggling, and head polo. It is with the greatest regret, therefore, that I must inform you that you do not fulfill our requirement. With the very best wish, Sir Patrick Delaney Potmore." Fumming, nearly headless Nick stuffed the letter away. "Half an inch of skin, Sue, holding the neck on, Harry. Most people would think that's good and beheaded. But oh no, it's not enough for Sir Probably," deprecated Potmore. Nearly headless Nick took several deep breaths and then said, in a far calmer tone, "So what's bothering you? Anything I can do?" "No," said Harry, "not unless you know where we can get 7 free Nimbus 2001 for a match against Slyth." The rest of Harry said was drowned by a high-pitched meowing from anywhere near his ankle. He looked down and found himself gazing at a pair of lamp-like yellow eyes. It was Mrs. Norris. The skeletal gray cat was used by the caretaker, Argus Filch, a sort of deputy in the endless battle against student. "You better get out of here, Harry," said Nick quickly. "Filch is in a good mood. He's got a flu, and some third years accidentally splattered frog brain all over the ceiling in Dungeon 5. He's been cleaning all morning, and if he sees you dripping mud all over the place—" "Right," said Harry, backing away from the escorting stare of Mrs. Norris, but not quickly enough, drawn to the spot by the mysterious power that seemed to connect him with his full cat. Argus Filch burst suddenly through the tapestry to Harry Wright, wheezing and looking wildly by the rule breaker. There was a thick tartan scarf bound around his head, and his nose was unusually purple. "Filth!" he shouted, his jaw a-quiver, his eyes popping alarmingly as he pointed the muddy puddle that had dripped over Harry's Quidditch robe. "Mess and muck everywhere! I've had enough of it, I tell you. Follow me, Porter," as Harry waved gloomy goodbye to nearly headless Nick, and followed Filch back down the stairs. Doubling the number of muddy footprints on the floor. Harry had never been inside Filch's office before, as place most students had avoided. The room was dingy and windowless, lit by a single oil lamp dangling from a low ceiling. A faint smell of fried fish lingered about the place. Wooden filling cabinets stood around the wall. From their label, Harry could see they had contained details of every pupil Filch had been ever punished. Fred and George Weasley had an entire door to themselves, a highly polished collection of chain and manacle hung on the wall behind Filch's desk. There was common knowledge that he was always begging Dumbledore to let him suspend student by the ankle from the ceiling. Filch grabbed a quill from his pot on the desk and began shuffling around looking for parchment. "Dung," he muttered fiercely. "Great sizzling dragon bodies! Boggies, frog brains, rat intensity. I've had enough of it. Make an example. Where's the form? Yes." He'd retrieved a large roll of parchment from his desk drawer and stretched it out in front of him, dipping his long black quill into the ink pot. "Name, Harry Potter. Crime." "It was only a bit of mud," said Harry. "It was a bit of mud to you, boy." "To me, it's an extra hour scrubbing," shouted Filch, a drip shivering unpleasantly at the end of his bulbous nose. "Crime, fooling the castle," suggested sentences, dabbing his dreaming nose, squinted unpleasantly at Harry, who waited with bated breath for his sentences to fall. But as Filch lowered his quill, there was a great bang on the ceiling of the office, which made the oil lamp rattle. "Peef!" Filch roars, filling down his quill in his transport of rage. "I'll have you this time. I'll have you." And without a backward glance at Harry, Filch ran flat-foot from the office, Mrs. Norris streaking alongside. Peef was the school Piltraces, a grinning airborne menace who lived to cause. Wait a minute, guys. Okay, so let's go back to our medicine who lived to cause havoc and distress. Harry didn't much like Pete, but who couldn't help feeling grateful for his timing. Hopefully, whatever Pete had done, and it sounds as though he would wreck something very big this time, would distract Filch from Harry. Thinking that he should probably wait for Filch to come back, Harry sank into a mouth-eaten chair next to the desk. There was only one thing on it, apart from its half-completed form, a large, glossy purple envelope with silver lettering on the front. With a quick glance at the door to check that Filch wasn't on his way, Harry picked up the envelope and read, "Quiz spell, Conrad's burning course in beginner magic." Intrigued, Harry flicked envelope open and pulled out the sheet of parchment inside. More curly silver writing on the front page said, "Feel out of step in the world of modern magic? Find yourself making excuse not to perform simple spell. Ever been taunted for your hand wand work? There is an answer. Quispell is an all-new, feel-safe, quick result, easy learning course. Hundreds of witch and wizard have been benefited from the Quispell method. Madame Zez, Nettle Thompson, right, had no memory for Indigo and my potion were family joke. Now, after Quispell, of course, I'm the center of attention in parties, and friend beg for a recipe of my settling solution. Wordlock DJ proud of Disturbery say, "My wife used to sneer at my fable charm, but 1 month in my your fabulous Quispell course, I succeeded in turning her into a yak. Thank you, Quispell." Fascinated, Harry thumbed through the rest of the envelope content. Why on earth did Filch on a Quispell course? Does this mean he was an improper wizard? Harry just reading lesson 1, holding your wand. Some useful tips. And shuffling footstep outside told Filch was coming back. Stuffing the parchment back into the envelope, Harry threw it back on the desk just as the door opened. Filch was looking triumphant. "That vanishing cabinet was extremely valuable," he was saying gleefully to Mrs. Norris. "Well, beef out this time, my sweet." His eyes fell on Harry and then darted to his Quispell envelope, which Harry realized was too late. It was lying 2 feet away from where it had started. Filch's pasty face went brick red. Harry braced himself for a tidal wave of fury. Filch hobbled across the desk and snatched up the envelope and threw it into the drawer. Did you read?" he spluttered. "No," Harry lied quickly. Filch's knobbly hand was twisting together. "If I thought you'd read my private, not that it's mine, for friend be that as made, however. For friend be that as may, however." Harry was staring at him in alarm. Filch never looked madder. His eyes were popping. A tick wasn't going in one of his pouchy cheek, and the torn scarf didn't help. "Very well, go, and don't breathe a word. Not that. However, if you didn't read, go now. I have to write a peeve report. Go." Amazed at his luck, Harry sped out of his office, off the corridor, and back upstairs to escape from Filch's office with a punishment, and was probably some kind of school record. Harry, did it work?" Nearly headless Nick was came gliding out of the classroom. Behind him, Harry could see the wreckage of the large black gold cabinet, which appeared to have been dropped from a great height. I persuade Peeve to crash it right over Filch's office," said Nick eagerly. "Thought it might distract him." "Was that you?" said Harry gratefully. "Yeah, it worked. I didn't even get detention. Thanks, Nick." They set off to the corridor together. Nearly headless Harry noticed was still holding Sir Patrick's rejection letter. I'm sorry for the shout out. So I think my little sister been naughty again. "I wish there was something I could do for you about Headless Hut," Harry said. Nearly headless Nick stopped in his track, and Harry walked right through him. He wished he hadn't. It was really like stepping through an icy shower. But there is something you could do for me, said Nick excitedly. Harry, would I be asking too much? But no, you wouldn't want. What is it? Said Harry. Well, this Halloween will be my 500th death day, said Harry, nearly headless Nick, drawing himself up and looking dignified. Oh, said Harry, not sure whether to look sorry or happy about this. Right. Oh, I'm holding a party down in the one of the rumored dungeon. Friends will be coming from all over the country. It'll be such honor if you would attend. Mr. Weasley and Miss Granger will be most welcome too, of course. But I dare say you'll rather go to the school feast. He watched Harry on tenterhook. No, said Harry quickly. I'll come. My dear boy, Harry Potter at my death day, and he hesitated, looking excited. Do you think they will be possibly mentioned to Sir Patrick how very frightening and impressive you find me? Of course, said Harry. Nearly headless Nick beamed at him. A death day party? Said Hermione keenly, when Harry had changed at last and joined her and Ron in the common room. I bet there aren't many living people who can say they have been to one of those. It'll be fascinating. Why would anyone want to celebrate the day they died? Said Ron, who was halfway through his potion homework, and grumpy. Sound dead. Sound dead desperate to me. Rain was still lashing on the window, which were now inky black, but inside all looked bright and cheerful. The firelight glowed over the countless squashy armchair where people sat reading, talking, doing homework, or in that case of Fred and George Weasley trying to find out what would happen if you fed a sort of firework to Salamander. Fred had rescued the brilliant orange, first dwelling lizard from a care of magical creature. Class, it was now smoldering gently on tables, surrounded by a knot of curious people. Harry was on the point of telling Ron and Hermione about Filch and the quiz spell, of course, when the salamander suddenly whistled into the air amid a loud spark and bang as it whirled around the room. The sight of Percy bellowing himself hoarse at Fred and George, who was spectacularly display of tinglingly showering from Salamander's mouth, and its escape into the fire with an accompanying explosion drove both Filch and the Quizzical envelope from Harry's mind. By the time Halloween arrived, Harry was regretting his rash promise to go to the Death Day party. The rest of the school were happily anticipating their Halloween feast. The great hall had been decorated with the useful live bat. Hagrid West pumpkin had been carved into the lantern, large enough for 3 men to sit on. There were rumors that Dumbledore had booked a troupe for dancing skeleton for the entertainment. A promise is a promise, Hermione reminded Harry bossily. You said you'd go to the Death Day party. So at 7 o'clock, Harry, Ron, and Hermione walked straight past the doorway to the packed Great Hall, which was glittering invitingly with a gold-plated candle, and directed their step instead toward the dungeon. A passageway leading to a nearly headless Nick party had been lined with candle too. Though the effect was far from cheerful. There was a long, thin, jet-black taper, all burning bright blue, casting a dim, ghostly light even over their own living faces. The temperature dropped with every step they took, as Harry shivered and drew his robe tightly around him. He heard what sounded like 1,000 fingernails scraping an enormous blackboard. Is that supposed to be music? Ron whispered as they turned the corner and saw nearly headless Nick standing at a doorway hung with black velvet drapes. My dear friend, he said mournfully, welcome, welcome, welcome. So pleased you could come. He swept off his plum hat and bowed them inside. It was an incredible sight. The dungeon was full of hundreds of pearly white, translucent people, almost drifting around the crowded dance floor. waltzing to the dreadful quavering sound of 30 musical saw, played by an orchestra of black draped platform. A chandelier overhead blazed in midnight blue with 1,000 more black candles. Their breath rose in the mist before them. It was like stepping into the freezer. Shall we have a look around? Harry suggested, wanting to warm up his feet. Careful not to walk through anyone, said Ron nervously, and they sat off the edge of the dance floor. They passed a group of gloomy nuns, a ragged man wearing a chain, and the fat fairy, a cheerful Hufflepuff ghost, who was talking to the knight with an arrow sticking out of his forehead. Harry wasn't surprised to see that the bloody baron, a gaunt, staring Slytherin ghost covered in silver bloodstain, was being given to wide berth by other ghosts. "Oh no," said Hermione, stopped abruptly. Turn back, turn back. I don't want to talk to Moaning Myrtle." "Why?" said Harry as they backtracked quickly. "She haunted a girl toilet on the first floor," said Hermione. "She haunted a toilet?" "Yes, it's been out of order all year because she kept having a tantrum and flitting to places. I never went in there anything. Anyway, if I could avoid it, it's awful trying to go to the loo with her wailing at you." "Look, food," said Ron. On the other side of the dungeon was a long table, also covered in black velvet. They approached it eagerly, but the next moment had stopped in their track, horrified. The smell was quite disgusting. Large round fish were laid on the handsome silver platter. Cake, burnt charcoal clack were heaped on the salver. There were great measure hages. A slab of cheese covered in fur green would make in them, in private places, an enormous grey cake in the shape of a tombstone, like a tar, like icing, forming the word Sir Nicholas de Mimsy Poppington, died 31st October 1492. "Expect the blooded raw to give a stronger flavor," said Hermione knowledgeably, pinching her nose and leaning closer to look at the perjured haggis. "Can we move? I feel sick," said Ron. They had barely turned around, however, when a little man swooped suddenly from under the table and came to halt in mid-air before them. "Help, Peef," said Harry cautioningly. Unlike the ghosts around them, Peef reportedly was a really reserve of pale and transparent. He was wearing a bright orange party hat, a revolving bow tie, and a bored grin on his wide, wicked face. "Nibble?" he said sweetly, offering the bowl of peanuts covered in fudge. "No, thanks," said Hermione. "Heard you talking about poor Myrtle," said Peef, his eyes dancing. "Rude news about poor Myrtle." He took a deep breath, and below, "Oi, Myrtle!" "Oh no, Peef, don't tell her what I said. She'll be really upset." Hermione whispered. Hermione whispered. Hermione whispered frantically. "I didn't mean it. I don't mind her. Hello, Myrtle." The squat ghost of a girl had glided over. She had the glummiest face Harry had ever seen, half hidden behind lank hair and thick pearly spectacles. "What?" she said sulkily. "How are you, Myrtle?" said Hermione in a fussily bright voice. "It's nice to see you out of the toilet." Myrtle sniffed. "Miss Granger was just talking about you," said Peef slyly in the Myrtle ear. "Just saying how nice you look tonight," said Hermione, glaring at Peef. Myrtle eyed Hermione suspiciously. "You're making fun of me," she said, silver tear wheeling rapidly in her hair, small see-through eyes. "No, honestly, I didn't just say how nice Myrtle looking. said Hermione, nudging Harry and Ron painfully in the ribs. "Oh, yeah, she did. Don't lie to me," Myrtle gasped, tear now flooding down her face, while Peach chuckled happily over her shoulder. "Do you think I don't know? People call me behind my back Fat Myrtle, Ugly Myrtle, Miserable, Moaning, Mopping Myrtle. You've missed a Spotty," Peach hissed in her ear. Moaning Myrtle burst into a anguished sob and fled from the dungeon. Peach shot after her, pelting her with a moldy peanut, yelling, "Spotty! Spotty!" "Oh dear," said Hermione sadly. Nearly Headless Nick now drifted toward them through the ground. "Enjoying yourself?" "Oh yes," they lied. "Not a bad turnout," said Nearly Headless Nick proudly. "The Wailing Widow came all the way from Kent. It's nearly time for my speech. I'll better go and warn the orchestra." The orchestra, however, stopped playing at the very moment. They and everyone else in the dungeon fell silent, looking around in this excitement as a hunting horn sounded. "Oh, here we go," said Your Headless Nick bitterly. Through the dungeon wall burst a dozen ghost horse, each ridden by headless horsemen. The assembly clapped wildly. Harry started to clap too, but stopped quickly at the sight of Nick's face. The horse galloped in the middle of the dance floor and hauled a rearing and plunging a large ghost at the front, whose bearded head was under his arm. Blowing the horn, leapt down, lifted his head high in the air so he could see over the ground. Everyone laughed and strode over to Nearly Headless Nick, squashing his head back onto his neck. "Nick," he roared, "how are you? Head still hanging in there?" He gave a hearty gulpful and clapped Nearly Headless Nick on the shoulder. "Well, come, Patrick," said Nick stiffly. "Liven," said Sir Patrick, spotting Harry, Ron, and Hermione, and giving a huge fake jump of astonishment so that his head fell off again. The crowd howled with laughter. "Very amusing," said Nearly Headless Nick darkly. "Don't mind Nick," shouted Sir Patrick Head from the floor. "Still upset we won't let him join the hunt, but I mean to say, look at the fellow." "I think," said Harry hurriedly, a meaningful look from Nick. "Nick very frightening and "Ha!" yelled Sir Patrick. "But he asked you to say that." "If I could have everyone's attention, it's time for my speech," said Nearly Headless Nick loudly. And climbing into an icy blue spotlight, "My late lamented lord, ladies and gentlemen, it is my great sorrow." But nobody heard much more. Sir Patrick and the rest of the Headless Hunt had just started a game of head hockey, and the crowd was just turning to watch. Nearly Headless Nick tried vainly to rapture his audience, but he gave up as Sir Patrick's head went sailing past him to loud cheers. Harry was very cold by now, not to mention hungry. "I can't stand much more of this," Ron muttered, his teeth chattering, as the orchestra ground back into action and the ghosts swept back on the dance floor. "Let's go," Harry agreed. They backed toward the door, nodding and beaming at anyone who looked at them, and a minute later were hurrying back up the passageway full of black candle. "Pudding might not be finished yet," said Ron hopefully, leading the way toward the step of the entrance hall. And then Harry heard it. "Rip, tear, kill." It was the same voice, same cold mother's voice he had heard in Lockhart's office. He stumbled hard, clutching a stone wall, listening. Oh no. Found it. Stumbled to a halt, clutching at the stone wall, listening with all his might, looking around, squinting up and down the dimly lit passageway. Harry, what are you? It's that voice again. Shut a minute. So hungry for so long. Listen, said Harry urgently, and Ron and Hermione froze, watching him. Kill, time to kill. The voice is growing fainter. Harry's chair was moving away, moving upward. A mixture of fear and excitement gripped him as he stared at the dark ceiling. How could it be moving upward? Was it in a plantum and whose stone ceiling didn't matter? This way, he shouted. And he began to run up the stair into the entrance hall. It was no good hoping to hear anything. The babbled talk of the Halloween feast echoing from the great hall. Harry sprinted up the marble staircase to the first floor. Ron and Hermione clattering behind. Harry, what are we? Shh! Harry strained his ear distantly from the floor above and smelled. And growing fainter still, he heard the voice. I smell blood. I smell blood. His stomach lurched. It's going to kill someone, he shouted, and ignoring Ron and Hermione Bill Widerface, and ran up the next flight of step 3 at a time, trying to listen over his own pounding footstep. Harry hurriedly around the whole second floor, Ron and Hermione panting behind him, not stopping until they turned a corner in the last deserted passage. Harry, what was it? What was all that about? Said Ron, wiping sweat off his face. I couldn't hear anything, but Hermione gave a sudden gasp and pointing down the corridor. Look! Something was squinting on the wall ahead. They approached slowly, squinting through the darkness. Foot-high wood had been double the wall between two windows, shimmering in the light cast by a flaming torch. The chamber of secret had been opened. Enemies of the hair, beware! Was that thing hanging underneath? What's that thing hanging underneath? Said Ron with a slight quiver in his voice as they edged near. Harry almost slipped over. There was a large puddle of water on the floor. Ron and Hermione grabbed him, and they inched toward the message. Eyes fixed on the dark shadow beneath it. All three of them realized what it was at once. Back with a splash. Mrs. Norris, the caretaker cat, was hanging by her tail from the torch briquette. She was stiff as a board, her eyes wide and staring. For a few seconds they didn't move. Then Ron said, Let's get out of here. Shouldn't we try and help? Harry began awkwardly. Trust me, said Ron. We don't want to be found here. But it was too late. A rumble as though a distant thunder told them that feast had just ended. From either end of the corridor where they stood came the sound of hundreds of feet climbing the stair and the loud, happy talk of well-fed people. Next moment, steel crashing the passage from both ends. The chattered bustle noise died suddenly. The people in the spot hanging cat. Harry, Ron, and Hermione stood alone in the middle of the corridor. Silence fell among the mass of students. And silent fell among the mass of students pressing forward to see the grisly sight. Then someone shouted through the quiet. Enemies of the hair, beware! You'll be next, mudblood. It was Draco Malfoy. He pushed in front of the ground, his cold eyes alive, his usually bloodless face flushed, as he grinned and sighted the hanging, immobile cat.